Hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today I have a treat for you. We have Leezá Carlone Steindorf joining us. And Leezá is a Forbes Coaches Council executive coach. She's a Canfield Success Training. She's been a former Tony Robbins results coach. She's a host of a public TV show called Live with Leezá. And she is super amazing. We're going to hear all about her coaching courses and how she has become a premier thought leader for corporations, executives, and state representatives for over 20 years in 35 countries. Leezá has been helping individuals and organizations achieve clarity amid their confusion. She's helped them simplify their structures when they're feeling the complexity of them. She's helping them transform tensions into crystallized road maps that give them extraordinary results. So I am super excited about sharing with Leezá today because she's all things women empowerment. She helps women to end that internal contribution that they're having to their own personal glass ceilings and ultimately shattering it. And when we shatter it for ourselves, we help women shatter it globally, and then obviously the men in our world as well. So welcome to my program, Leezá.
Thank you, Annie. It's nice to be here. Really a pleasure. I enjoy everything about what you do in the world.
It's so wonderful to unite with women globally, just doing their thing. And I love it when I connect up with other women who are sort of in my space, empowering women, but just making it their own, doing it their own way with their own flavor. And you are super awesome. You are also in an upcoming anthology book called A Woman's Guide to Business Domination, and that is coming out in October of this year. So that's exciting. How about we start with what you're actually doing now? Tell me about Leezá Steindorf's business, what you offer people, and then we'll dance around the topics of the book, what challenges you've had in your life, what experiences you've had that have helped you to actually just evolve into the woman you are today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you. Yes, what I'm doing right now, I am loving the coaching that I do, individual coaching. And what that means for me is really being one-on-one with people who are engaged in their lives, they're engaged in leadership, they're engaged in their organizations and propelling them forward and walking with them, really supporting them in their own process. Coaching, I think, is often a misnomer from the sports arena of telling people how to do things, not at all what leadership coaching is, at least not the way I do it. So in my leadership coaching, I enjoy really helping people discover what their value is. And what I find is men and women are unaware of what value they really bring to the table. And more so over the years, I have found, because I have worked globally in so many countries, I spent most of my life overseas. I found that it's, I'm going to say, almost universal, if I will, that women do not know the value they bring. They want to believe it. They espouse it. They seek to present themselves as valuable. And deep inside, we're part of the system that has, kept us down, that has seen us as second best, that there's a number two and number one. And in our minds, we're always trying to get to that number one. So my pleasure is to work with women and help them really recognize, wow, I am valuable. Like what I bring is worthy. It is good. It serves people. And so when women step into that knowing of themselves, they are completely different in the world. They are powerful. Their skills and their abilities flow. So I do that in both one-on-one sessions. And then I also have the Core of Female Leadership program. And that's a team program that I do in organizations, whether they have a small team of 6 or, large team of 60. That I take them through a program with very specific tools and mindset skills, if you will, shifts, so that they can find that value in themselves and really come to the optimal of their potential. And I get to do that all day long.
Oh, what a joy. What
Right?
an absolute joy to help women, reach their optimal potential. I mean, isn't that just what we would hope would be a natural desire and reality for every woman in the planet? Like, we're all born to be someone unique, someone amazing in their own way. It doesn't have to come with accolades. It doesn't have to come with all these other things. It's how you feel, right? So why isn't that just automatic though? What are the reasons when you talked about, helping women understand their value? Why do we have such a struggle with understanding our value?
Well, I think it's been lost. I don't think it's always been that way. There are many, many cultures on this planet historically that have been matriarchal and matrilineage, which means that the perpetuation of their family goes through the mother's line, and property and leadership was through the female. And so throughout time, there have been, I don't know if it was the preponderance of cultures that had female leadership or if it was balanced with the patriarchal. I can't say that. But I do know that there's enough historical evidence, and there are still some cultures today that recognize that we are the givers of life. I mean, whatever we want to do in the world, however we want to twist it, whatever science is doing with other options with our genders, which is fine. People are born in different ways into the world. But the root of the matter is that biologically, women bring life into the world. That is a fact. And that ability, that natural setup, if you will, of the feminine within women is powerful. Like, you can't avoid that. And so it's not only bringing children into the world, even the women that don't birth themselves, we nurture, we support life. We connect, we relate. And that power is really the foundation. It builds the fabric of society. And that's powerful. And so throughout history, that has always been an element. And because we are the life givers, we've tended to be the ones that are at home and taking care of the children. And then men traditionally have gone on and often killed the bison and, brought home the elk and whatever. So we had this work distribution. But what's happened in modern times, if you will, we can go back a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand years, is, they're better because they're out hunting the bison and we're only raising the children. And so that, I think that's the genesis of a lot of that self-discrimination and cultural discrimination. And through time, it's kind of just settled in okay, well, it's a man's world and they're out there doing what's important, business, earning money, providing, which is important. No doubt about that. But it's not better than what women bring to the table, whether we're doing it in the boardroom or we're doing it in the home. And most women are doing it in both anymore. We're wearing both hats. We're wearing our professional hat and our private hat. And so our lack of faith in our value, or lack of even acknowledgement of our value, is not our fault. It's a cultural trait, let's say, but it is our responsibility to change it. If we are waiting for the circumstances to change, that ain't going to happen. We change ourselves. It's like dancing. You change your steps, that dance has to change. If you're dancing with somebody else, can't avoid that. So that's where I think it comes from.
Beautifully said. And it's not just you individually changing your dance, it's actually building a movement, and that's what this is about now. It's actually saying, you individually can feel, well, what difference does it make if I start making these changes? But when women globally start saying, hey, we join you in that. We're actually a team, we're a tribe. That's why I have the Women's Biz Tribe. Why, when you unite together, monumental shifts are possible, right? I think you drew 2 points there, that it's value on yourself, but it's also the value you put on the role or the contribution. So there's the male and female sort of values that you have for your own self and who you are. And there's also the different values we put on, the work compared to childcare, the roles, the position title. If one of you might be 50% in the workforce, but 50% of that workforce, 50% of men are earning over 120K than women, right? So, it might be that you value their title or their type of work more than yours, but it could be actually just an opportunity. It's because you haven't had that opportunity to have that extra education or go for those roles because you might have been caring for children and others, right?
That's exactly right. And I think that knowing I speak and I teach on internal orientation before external orientation. So really coming within and starting here of who am I? What is my value system? What do I want in the world? And how do I want to go forth and create that? Co-create it, achieve it.
Mm.
And when I start here, whether it's in a conversation with someone as beautiful as you, or I'm doing a task, or I'm going into a meeting, or I'm presenting in front of the team, whatever I'm doing, I start here. And then I move outward from this anchor. And then I look outward and I say, okay, so what are their needs? And how does that align? Where are they at? Where are they going? And how can I support that? So we tether back to ourselves while we're dealing with what's out there. But what happens with most women, men as well, but with most women is we start outside. Well, what do they expect from us? How are they seeing me?
Yes.
How do they want me to be? And so we're anchoring ourselves externally, looking backward at ourselves like we're another object, saying, oh, well, how am I supposed to be in the world? And that's that keeps you on the off foot. You're always uncertain. You don't know exactly what am I supposed to be doing? Because that internal impulse never stops. It's who we are. Yes. We're connected to the life force. And so when we tune into that and we let first those external voices fall away and we listen clearly and calmly, we use that as intention then as we move outward.
So true. It's that feeling of it's a confidence in your presence or your authority to be in that role, in that position. And when you've moved, when you've had that massive shift to that positioning, then you can just show up and step up and expect to have your voice heard, have your contributions, and appreciated and valued and enacted. Whereas when you're in that space of, I hope I'm good enough, have I ticked the right boxes, will they pick me? It's a whole other side of the coin, right? It means that you're always going to be reactive rather than proactive, don't you find?
Yes, I do. And you said it very well, is to have the authority in your role. I'm going to go even a step farther, and that is to say, we need to rediscover the authority to be ourselves, right? And I'll give you a little example is that, and this may sound ridiculous, but it was so powerful. When I was brought up, my father was very dominant, and he used to say to me and my sister, you don't know what you're talking about. Just quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're saying. And through time, that was a little thing. It wasn't horrible. But I remember being very unsure when I started out in business as a young woman. Is that right? Is that right? What I just said, like doubting myself. And then I remember I was in my early 40s and I had my own coach, right, at the time. And I asked myself, how can I not know what I'm saying? Like, how is that possible? I'm the one saying it, right? So if I'm the one saying it, I have to know what I'm talking about. Absolutely. And that changed everything, because I might not have the whole story. I might not be an expert in that field, but I do know what I'm saying. And I think as basic and maybe ludicrous as that sounds, I think that's what most women stumble over, is really owning the authority to be me in any circumstance. If I have an opinion, it's my opinion. Now, they may disagree with it. They may laugh at it. It's still my opinion, and that's valid. And owning that validity of ourselves, I think, is the very first step to really owning our role and also being successful in business.
It's a foundation stone, isn't it? To actually appreciate that. I know I struggled with that for a very long time of, when people told I wasn't able to do things, or I wasn't going to be good enough to do things, and you accept them as a blanket statement of truth because of the authority that you put on the person who gave them that to you. And I remember going through that next phase of, what a shame I can't be, because I really love this space. I really want to do these things. And so it's like a disappointment, because you're still at that stage, those listening in, of, I haven't actually appreciated that that's enough in itself. You are enough in yourself, for your ideas that you have, the passions that you have, the things that you want to get involved in, that someone else's, to get that reality that it's just someone else's opinion of you which
Absolutely.
might not even be in your space, right? They might not even be in your area. It's just, fascinating. So you are going to be writing a chapter in A Woman's Guide to Business Domination. Our book that we have coming out is very exciting in October this year. Tell us, what is your chapter called, and what are your key things, without giving it away, because I know everyone's going to want to buy this book. What are the key teachings that you're going to be presenting?
It's the chapter I'm doing is on connecting with clients. And I've already shared a little bit about the internal orientation. And so the awareness that from a feminine perspective, right? And I distinguish between feminine and masculine rather than man and woman, because men have both elements, masculine and feminine, and the spectrum, as do women. We've seen a lot of that in our world, and that's natural, and that's good that it is so. And to know, when are we leaning into which attributes of ourselves? And so the wonderful thing about the feminine energy is it's inclusive, and it has an expansive view. Women, or the feminine, tends to feel peripherally. We can be direct, but we always have like a spatial awareness. And so in business, whether we are working with one client or we're working with a whole organization, is to have that clarity, that direct approach, but to soften and allow ourselves to trust that feminine aspect of connection and relating. So I hear you saying this. How does that relate to this department? Or I hear you want this project. How does that relate to the goals you've set in your strategic plan? So giving yourself the opportunity to trust that natural, I'm going to say, ability, if you will, to connect the dots, to connect people, and to connect yourself to people. And then ultimately to help them do the same in what they're doing, which is what up levels the climate, and of course, then also the bottom line.
Absolutely fantastic. I think there's going to be so many teachings in your chapter, because definitely just understanding even that point of the feminine and the masculine. That's right. We all have those qualities. It's actually saying it's not as if women are over here and men are over there and we operate differently. We all have different qualities and percentages, if you like, of how you show up. I think that's a key point, and I've even been told that, one guy came up to me and goes, well, you're pretty alpha male, aren't you? Like in your tender, and that was only because I showed up as, just confident that I had my voice, and so suddenly he perceived that as very male. It was a male quality, whereas I kind of go, well, actually it's just empowered female confidence and authority.
Nice.
It's like you invited me to this thing. So it's interesting how people perceive those qualities in each other. So for you writing this chapter, and I know a lot of your work is with companies on actually going, how do you show up to your client? How do you connect with each other within the organization and also with your clients? What are the biggest issues that people struggle with? What are they booking you to, what problem are they wanting you to solve for them in this aspect of really being able to connect with their clients?
Do you want to know what they think the problem is, or what I think the problem is?
I'd love to know both sides.
So I'm usually called in because leaders are not being impactful. And it's kind of a general thing. We think they could do more. They have more potential. They're not really moving as fast as we would like them to, or we want them to, right? And so they want their leaders to really step up to the plate. And when I work with individuals, what I find is what we were talking about earlier. It's not only a lack of confidence, it's a lack of awareness of their value, and a lack of awareness that they don't own their value. So a lot of times, and this is true whether I'm working with men or women leaders, it really is the same. But the female leaders have a different constellation within their working, especially, well, not only if it's a patriarchal organization, but just most businesses are male dominated. It's the few that are female dominated. And so the women that I work with, they will, even when they can feel their own value, they're still then encountering what's going on in the world with men. So there's the confidence aspect, the real ownership of their value. And then there's communication, which is huge. So one of my trainings, I spent years working with Dr. Natalie Rogers, which was just a gift. And for those that don't know, Dr. Carl Rogers was the grandfather of nonviolent communication. The father of nonviolent communication was Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote the book. But Carl Rogers said, when somebody's understood from their frame of reference, just that alone is healing. Now, of course, he was a therapist, but you take that into the business setting, and to allow somebody to first of all, for you to step in and really seek to understand somebody's perspective, even if there's no conflict, you're working with somebody in collaboration to understand how they're thinking. First of all, they feel heard. So they are now in a safe zone of the most heightened experience of creativity, because their nervous system is calm. They feel they're in a comfortable environment, and they can just bring it on full as whatever they've got, they can bring to the table. And for yourself, now you know, okay, this is what they're thinking. Now you have perfect fertile ground to share what you're feeling. The environment is ripe for that. And so that's how collaboration really comes to be. What happens in most relationships, whether they're private or in organizations, is people will come with their thoughts, and the others listening will come with their thoughts. And now we have thoughts going like this, right?
Yes.
And you're not, and it's a shame because there's so much goodness there. So when we slow that down and we gain the tools that I teach and others do on how do we communicate? How do we get our message across in such a way that it can really be heard, that I have the highest chances of achieving what it is that I seek here? And how can I hear the best? Because when you have that, then it's just like exponential. And I'm always amazed how businesses survive without that. How can you do this?
Exactly. Right? How do you function?
So yes, helping especially women do that, because when why I like to work with cohorts of women within an organization, when they start shifting, it just permeates. And it's not the direct mail. It's the, so if I understand you, it's this, or asking questions from true curiosity, and things start to shift in the culture in a really profound way. And then the men respond. And so then that's really addressing the women in an organization is the best way, in my experience, to radically transform a company. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So the disconnect of what they think their problem is to what you think it is. When you come in, you listen to what the reason they requested you to come in as the consultant. You know, what is the main difference that you see? You go, I know what you need. Is it usually communication?
Well, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say here, it's two pieces: lack of awareness and lying.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Now, lying, I'm going to be very clear about this. Lying just means you don't tell the full truth.
Yeah.
And if we use that as the definition of lying, about everybody we know does that.
Yeah.
Okay. When you do it consistently and in a business, you're setting up an environment where people know they can't be authentic and they can't share everything. And so when individuals know that, especially leaders, they cannot bring their full game. They just can't. And so the foundation of all of my work is called The Genius of Non-Judgment. And it's I give it free. It's online. You can Google it, and it's for anybody and everybody. And in that training, it's a 40-minute training, I distinguish between facts and experiences of those facts. Now, a fact can be correct or incorrect. You are either wearing blue or you're wearing yellow.
Yeah.
Right? So I can say, oh, she's wearing yellow. No, that's incorrect. She's wearing red. Right? For Annie, I'm wearing blue, right? Now, if I say, ooh, I so don't like that. That red doesn't look good on her. That's not a fact. That's my interpretation of the fact that you're wearing red. Or I say, oh my God, she looks fantastic in red. Again, it's not a fact. Feels better. But it's my interpretation of that fact. And what happens is where the difficulties come privately and also especially in business, because a lot of money is involved, is when we say, oh, that red, Annie, that's not good for you. Don't wear that. And now you're taking that as the fact is red is not good for me.
Yes.
And so then we start driving with things that we think are facts, but are really different people's opinions. So when a company comes to me and says, so Sally Smith is having difficulty presenting well, right? She has difficulty presenting well. Well, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
So then to get to the facts, her voice is soft. The points that we've asked her to present are not being presented on the PowerPoint presentation. When she was asked a question on Tuesday afternoon, she was unable to give the statistics that we asked for. Those are specifics, right? But they package in this, oh, she doesn't present well and we want her to present well. No, they want her to give the facts that they need so that the people she's presenting with can actually do the work that they're expected to do.
Yes.
And when we don't judge the experience is right or wrong, when we say, oh, okay, I hear you don't like red on me. I love red. I'm wearing it anyway. So maybe the days that I wear red, you don't look at me or you put on different glasses, right? That we don't give a judgment of it's bad that they think red is bad. It's good that they think neither one. It's just that's a fact. And so if I'm in a company and Sally is speaking softly, I can say, Sally, I can't hear. Could you raise your voice, or I can come closer to you, or we can get you a microphone.
Yes.
But to kind of slink out of the room and the HR director calls somebody and says, Sally needs help presenting. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's by lying. It's misrepresenting what's there because people are scared. And when we remove the judgment and literally accept people, their experience for valid for as it is, we can say and be with people in a very open and loving way without judgment, but still speaking to what's present.
I absolutely love that because you multiply that out and that is transformative in businesses, in relationships, in every sector. That's right. It's because you're actually just being transparent on this is what I need at this time. If it's the results of, if you're in a work environment, I need the presentation, I need the slides to look like this, I need that. It's actually just very sort of objective. It's saying this is the fact, this is what we need, and it needs to look like that. So when someone isn't, it doesn't matter how they show up, that's right, in themselves, their personalities, bits and pieces, it's can they deliver what you're wanting in the way that's required if it's in a work environment for the business. If it's in a relationship, it's going to be very different because they might say, well, that doesn't work for me because I'm not getting paid to do that. I don't have to bend as much. And so there's going to be different elements of that. I love the way you've actually called it out as a lie, which is just anything that is a mistruth, right, of some way. And we can bend what we say for our own agenda. And that also can be really hard on people because maybe Sally in this instance, maybe she's then getting, slandered or trashed or this or that around the water cooler in any office going, oh my God, what's it with Sally? Now, Sally might not be using her voice or speaking quietly because she's absolutely, the culture of the organization is scary as anything. She's probably rehearsed it and it's fantastic in her bedroom and then turns up at work and her heart rate's going and she's already, a stressy mess. She could have thrown up in the bathroom. You don't know. So is it the culture that, you're saying you're one thing on the walls of the business so that we value every person and all these things, there's statements, but what, is there a congruency in how people are showing up? I love what you said too before about, that everyone can have their voice, but that can only happen if there's not a massive hierarchy in the position. So that's where, the team, is it really a team or are you allowed to really have your voice heard? Are there repercussions of that? What is the safety of that environment?
I appreciate you saying that. And what is important, and you are right, when I work with Sally, which I don't have a client, Sally Smith.
It's okay, Sally.
Very sorry. I'm not speaking about you, right? But when I work with people like Sally Smith, I'm very clear. She has reasons for that. So my work is to help, is to first of all, understand what are her reasons? What's motivating that? What's behind that? And I work with a very specific model to identify that, help her identify that, and then figure out, okay, is that really what you believe? Is that really where you are in the world or where you want to be in the world? And it's not a affirmation and it's not a just be positive because that simply doesn't work long term. It's really getting to the root of what do I value and how do I see myself as valuable and how do I want to live that in the world? So I'll give you an example. I had a client, let's call her Tina Thompson, another letter. And she worked in an organization that was very patriarchal, and I was called in because she had brought up charges against her boss for discrimination. And she was a woman of color, and he was from another culture. He was not American. He was from a Latin culture. So they didn't get along. And Tina didn't want to go on Zoom. This was at the beginning of COVID, and she didn't talk to people, very shy and so forth. And when I started working with her, we looked at where did that come from? And as a woman of color in her culture, she grew up watching her mother and her grandmother being very subservient and quiet and really not having a place or a voice. And what she came to realize was that she just thought that was the way it was for women. And I asked her, I said, well, do you believe that? So I guess it is that way for a lot of people, but I don't want it to be that way for me. I said, okay, if that's not what you want, what do you want?
Yeah.
Well, I want to have a voice because I believe XYZ. I said, okay, so why don't we do that? And so then with the communication tools that I have, we work together. About 6 months later, I get a phone call from the HR director of this company. And this is how it went. Is this Leezá? Yes, it is. Leezá, this is so-and-so, HR director or whatever. Oh, hi, how are you? Nice to speak with you again. What did you do to Tina? It's like, I'm sorry. What do you mean? What did I do to Tina? She's a completely different person. Unbelievable. Wow. She not only dropped the case against her boss, they became very close. She helped him transform the team. And the CEO of the organization was so impressed with the growth that happened, promoted Tina into the C-suite. And so this HR director said, whatever you did with her, we want more of it. And I said, and I said, I'll do the core of female leadership program with you all. So when women recognize their value, and you don't have to become like a man, that's one horrible waste of a woman is to try and be like a man.
Exactly.
So she found her voice and the reason for her behavior, and she was able to change that in a way that was aligned with her values. And that's what then remains sustainable. That's sustainable transformation. It's really just returning to who we are, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that same example that I shared before, going, you go, that's the way it is, or what a shame it can't be. These are stages of progressing through, breaking through. It doesn't happen overnight. Often, ladies, if you're listening in, it's like, yeah. And then you go, well, maybe it can be, Tina met with you and went, well, maybe it is possible to be a new woman, like to change the narrative of how I show up and what's possible for me. And then when you then go to that next stage and go, well, I'll give it a few tries and see how it goes. And that's right. With a very short period of time, it's exponential. It's amazing transformation in people personally, which gives us the most joy. But also then that filters out, right? It's a ripple effect through companies. For Tina, in this situation, it changes not only her, but everyone in her sphere, right? And it's multi-generational then, because then if and when Tina has a family, her kids will go, oh yeah, women can have this voice, can have these opportunities. It's assumed rather than being a desire or unfortunately not possible. I mean, I just love it. This is the ripple effect of change, right? When it
is. And that was one of the things that she said to me later is she said, this has so changed my life, but not only mine, that of my daughters, because her daughters were seeing her being in the world differently than they were their grandmother and their great grandmother. Right. So now the daughters could see, oh, it can be this way also. And then there's choice in what we want to live into.
Oh. I love that, which is why we need as many, empowered role models for women who gives them hope. It's like, even if you don't have this in your sphere at the moment, you can join, women's groups and tribes and have these opportunities that go, just hang on to, people like Leezá and I hang on to our coattails and go, oh, well, I'll just go with you and see what's possible. Absolutely. And it is phenomenal, right? Because it just gives that safety and security to be able to have. Oh my gosh, we could talk so much about that, but I would love to just tap into also, well, what led you, Leezá Steindorf, to make this your line of work? What's your why behind this? Is there a backstory that makes it all sort of palpable, or is this just your chosen area of profession?
Well, it is my chosen area. However, my background certainly contributed to that. So I grew up, both of my parents, wonderful people, good values, very wounded. So my father had been in Vietnam. He was a pilot, would fly into combat zones and pick up soldiers and corpses and bring them home. And so he came home with what they now call PTSD. At that time, they didn't have a word for that. But he was really severely traumatized, and he brought his rage and his trauma and his violence into the home. So I grew up really terrified in physical and verbal violence. And as I went out into the world as a young woman, I was just scared of everything. I didn't have a voice. And when I did speak, I was very harsh, and I had a lot of anger, because that's what helped me survive, was anger. And so I did a lot of work. I did spiritual work, Course in Miracles, Unity. I studied everything from Buddhism to mystic Christianity, and to find peace within myself and to try and find understanding. And I found a place where I was really at peace and happy, and I liked myself. And then I had my first child, and I realized I had no skills other than the ones I had from my parents. I had none. And one evening when I got so angry, and I didn't do anything, but I just inside had this rage against my son, who was like 2 years old, and just as 2-year-olds can get, frustrated. And I remember feeling this rage. I was like, wow, you have got to change something. That's not going to go very long. So I went back to the drawing board and looked at best practices of communication and conflict resolution and parenting and kindness, and just as much as I could find on personal transformation. And I did it again. And that's why I ended up working in peace education in schools. And I also then ended up working with parents. And I have my one program is the Parenting Success Blueprint, is an online training. And I have a book, Connected Parent, Empowered Child. So again, back to the connection chapter from the book, of when I'm really connected first to myself and then connected with that child, they feel their value, they feel their worth, and I don't get caught on their behavior. And so from all of that work that I did, I went back to my dad and I said, Dad, we're going to have a relationship. I don't know what you're talking about, military man. Oh, we have a relationship. I said, no, not what I'm talking about, relationship.
Not a good one.
Blessed him. He was an educator, smart man, very committed. And I just didn't give up. I kept talking to him. And I remember the day when I lived overseas at the time, and I came back to the United States where he was living, and he took me out for breakfast, his one quality time with me a year. And he wanted me to talk to him. And he said, you don't talk to me. And I said, yeah, there's a reason for that, because you always told me, well, I didn't know what I was talking about. He said, well, talk to me now about the current administration. I said, that's not going to go very well, because we had very different worldviews. And I said, but I'll tell you what I do believe. And that is that I believe that people have such goodness, that we are sourced in the creation that puts the stars in the sky and spins the earth and has the trees grow up and the rain come down. And that is who we are. And when we forget that, the farther away we get from knowing that goodness is how much we can measure the horrendousness of our acts. The closer we are to that memory, the kinder we are. And when we forget that, that's when we can do things that people call evil. And my father looked at me and he said something that absolutely changed my entire world, and it changed my understanding of him. And he said, I wish I had the courage to see the world that way.
Wow.
And I stood up from that table, and that changed both of our lives. And he took my hand the first time in 40 years, and he took my hand and he held my hand as we walked back around this lake we were sitting at. And after that, he found, I'm going to say externally, he found forgiveness for himself. We became so close. And at the end of his life, I was with him when he died. He was so loving, so kind. And it's like that gave him permission to come back to that goodness. And so the work that I do is really that. We are that. And I found that in myself. All the anger that I had was a cry for help because I felt so helpless, which is what anger is, by the way. It's not a,
Yeah.
it's not a statement of power. It's a request for power.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that was it was a long process. And I went through all of that, and I was lucky enough to be able to use this work with raising my own 2 children who are now really amazing. And so I'm proof.
Yes.
I really am. I'm proof. You know, if people had known me 30, 40 years ago, they would have said, that is not the same human being. This is what was always there. It just, I didn't have the chance to grow it.
Yes. I think that what an amazing story. Oh wow, I don't even know what to say first. First of all, what an amazing human being you are when you have been so hurt and it's painful, but you've persisted because you knew you wanted that connection. You wanted
Yes.
that for your dad. So it's very easy just to walk away and go, you know what, you don't get me. Have a great life, whatever. So the fact that you actually did that, I mean, it shows the depth of your character and what you're wanting. So first of all, just congratulations to you. To actually see that live transition of, that's right, the courage to be brave is actually the courage to also lean in, but it's also the courage to let down the guard, let down all those walls. Your dad, and you cannot imagine the experiences he had, but there's so many protective layers to drown out the pain that
right.
it's not an easy, when you said it doesn't happen overnight, it certainly doesn't, because it took a long time for that to get there. It's going to take a long time for it to go away, and it has to be the most incredible safe place that you then provided for him, that it was safe and it was okay. It was okay to do the journey, which is going to take some time. So, wow, absolutely amazing. And I always love when I went on this show to talk with people, their backstory and their why, because that actually, deeply shows why you know it's possible, because it happened not only for your dad and you saw the transition, but with anything that we do, we experience and we change because of it ourselves, right? And also to the other learning that I had from what you shared was that often, I get people telling me, but I don't want to, who do I have to be? Who do I have to become? What sort of, teach me to be that person or this person or more like you or whatever. And I go, oh my gosh, you're not being someone else. You're actually being you. You're learning how to show up in the evolution of who that person is becoming. We're on a journey of becoming. And that's what you were doing as a mum. You are a loving mum. You've got these kids who seriously do drive you crazy. Oh my goodness, you love them to bits, but you're in an uncomfortable place because you don't have those skills, and so therefore, when you don't have skills, you default on what you've had been taught to you, and you don't realize how automatic that is. So actually, stop and pause and realize that you need to do things differently, and this is going to require some work. Absolutely phenomenal. And then when you see the difference in yourself, as well as seeing it with other people, when you start seeing it yourself going, I can't believe I responded in a different way, or I did something, and you see the effects, that's exciting.
So, I so appreciate you saying that. And I will have to say, I appreciate your acknowledgement. I don't, what I really want other people to understand is I'm not special.
Yeah.
we all have that within ourselves, but we're scared. I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said, hate is easy, love takes courage. And so to give ourselves permission to love, it's scary as
shit.
It is, right? It's scary. And so I'll give you an example at how much this has changed. I amazed myself. I was like, wow. As you know, Annie, I was just on this 3-week backcountry tour, right, with my daughter. And we were in Bozeman, Montana. We went into a store. We came back out, and there's a whiteout blizzard. This is May 20th. I'm like, blizzard? Okay. Whiteout. We get in the car. She has 4-wheel drive. And as I start driving, I said, we need to get to a campground. And we had a tent, but we could also sleep inside of her SUV. We get in the car. We start driving, and I can't see in front of me. I said, Leah, call the campground, see if they have space. As we're driving on the highway, warning comes on, stay off the roads. I mean, it was a bad blizzard. We get to the campground. There's like 3 cars in like 50 spaces. Great. I ring the door, wind's blowing. The man opens the door and he said, "We can't help you." And I said, "Oh, we don't." I said, we don't even need a camp spot. We don't need services. We just need a place to park the car. And we're going to sleep inside the car. He said, "We have a power outage." And behind him was a large screen television with football playing.
Yeah.
So I was like, power outage. Okay. I said, "Listen, anything you can help me with?" Nope. Closes the door. I said, "Sir," I said to the closed door, I said, "Sir, you're not going to leave two women in a blizzard alone, are you?" And he screamed through the door, "There's a truck stop down the road."
Wow.
So I walked back in the car and my daughter said to me, "Mama, he even closed the blinds." So as we're driving away,
he does not want you to interrupt his football match.
I was floored. And I'm telling you, there was nobody on the road. This was 10 o'clock at night in a blizzard.
Unbelievable.
So as I start driving away, I thought, you know what? I need to call him. And I called and I didn't even know why yet, but I picked up the phone. I dialed the number. Of course, he didn't answer, but it was the campground. And as soon as I heard his voice, all of my frustration drained away. And I said, "Sir, I was just at your door and you turned me away." I said, "I don't know what's happened to you, but I really pray that if you're ever in need, that somebody helps you." And then I hung up the phone. And then I sat there and I was like, wow, I really feel that way, you know?
Yeah.
And that was so, because years ago I've been, and that wasn't there. But that takes just practice and time and time and time again. And we all have that inside of ourselves.
Exactly.
Our culture usually doesn't support it.
Yeah. It's being brave. It's pushing through, because your heart would have been erased. You know, when you do things and you go, "I can't believe I'm doing this." And then you do it and you go, I'm now braver and stronger. I did it. And I taught myself how to just then release that. You know, that's right. Who knows what's happening at that other end? Who knows what's happening in his environment? Yep. Anything else? You never know the backstory. You never know what people are doing under the water, you know. And so it's like,
I said to my daughter, I said, "We don't know if his wife may be ill. He maybe just lost a family member." But what I did was one of the mastermind programs that I do is Woman Undaunted. I said, "We're going to find an apartment complex." We found an apartment complex. I parked under a pine tree, and we're talking, by this time, there's probably around 11 inches of snow. We parked under there. I wanted to get internet, and I had bought us some popcorn in the car in a snowstorm. We turn on the computer. We watch Netflix, and we made popcorn. I was ahead. So
amazing memory for the two of you. That's right. You turn a moment that you could be angry and cranky and you're talking negatively all night, or you can just be sitting there and go, "Oh, well, let's just do something else fun."
Exactly.
What have been your biggest career challenges, Leezá? What have been your biggest times in your life that you went, "Wow, this is going to require me to really dig deep"?
Well, I was married for 26 years. And my former husband, my first husband, I lost my second in an accident. But my first husband had a psychotic break, became literally a different person, and stole all of our savings. 26 years. And I was living in Germany at the time. He's German, a pilot for Lufthansa. And so just getting through that was a lot. And there's a chapter in Jane Seymour's book on that experience of mine. So I moved to the United States, where I was born. And when I came here, this was the biggest challenge I had in business. I brought with me a quarter of a century of tremendous international experience. I'd been working in organizations doing strategic planning, conflict resolution, and crisis intervention around the world. At this time, it wasn't as global as it is now. This was 10 years ago. But so I get here and I know nobody. And so trying to establish work connections when I had all this experience, but I knew not one human being.
Oh, so hard.
And that was difficult because the people in my experience level have had 30 years of networking behind them, right? So that had been and it is still at times, although now I have traction, I have credibility, people know my work and I'm called on. But boy, I tell you, that was a long, dry spell of trying to scratch out. It took me a quarter of a century to get a business going as I had, to try and scratch out in unknown territories. And the American culture is very different than Northern Europe. How to do business. Like in Northern Europe, they don't care about you as a person and this whole branding of the person.
Your resource.
It's your company and your skill set.
Yeah.
I came here and they're like, you have to brand yourself and your picture. I'm like, my picture?
What?
Picture? So there was the cultural aspect, but it was really more coming with a lot of experience, but not having any connections at all and trying to build from scratch again. And I started again. I went to Rotary clubs and I started doing free lunch and learns at the university and, did pro bono for churches to just try and, get connections and get to know people. And that was tough, Annie.
Wow. That is very tough. That is super, super tough. And I know other people, particularly others I've had on the show, and like people globally, just moving out of your safety zone of everything that you know. Talk about a moment that is going to just push all of your buttons, trigger all of your insecurities, everything. Is like, oh my gosh, I am actually just alone in this world, and we all are. We just create these frameworks around us that give us that safety and security. So it's like, how do you get that to be yourself, but also then how do you then build that up? Anyone who's done that will just go, oh my gosh, I know that exactly.
And that's for that internal orientation, which you're just saying, finding that home and that security here, and then moving out. And when it's not out there anymore, boy, you got to find it here.
Yeah. And when you've done that, that's right. Now you're so much more empowered than other people who haven't had to have that experience, right? So every time we have experiences, although painful and although frustrating, and it would trigger envy of everyone else who's got, oh my gosh, they've got all these networks and they know all these people because they know all the people they went to college with, all the people in their communities. And so you can spend your time being envious that they've got things that you don't have. And you can, you can go from that, or you can actually go, oh my gosh, I'm going to learn so much about myself. I'm going to have to get so strong so that when you now are in a position that you have that, you have both. Right? You're then now personally strong, but you've also got strong connections that continue to build, which I think
is and that indomitable spirit, that being undaunted, right? That's what I ended up, I did not only a trainer for Jack Canfield, but I did masterminds in his home and helped with his retreats. And I've worked with Tony Robbins. So I've, the credibility has come through my tenacity and my desire, but it has been through that necessity. And I honestly would not like to do that again.
Okay, you can put that learning behind you. That's right.
Let's not repeat that one.
Although very strategic, which shows a lot about you, to actually be working with the likes of Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield. You've gone to the very best, which would have been at a personal cost. You could have done things other ways. You've obviously, at a time of real challenge, you've also then went and said, okay, well, I'm going to have to do the harder work, that other people don't have to do because they don't need it. But you went with the best of the best and actually got those learnings and those connections that therefore have helped you today. So I think that's a really great teaching in itself of going, you're going to have to back yourself. It's aiming for the dream, right? And go, for the dream, for me, this is actually going to help me a lot, even though painful. So you now got your own show. Live with Leezá. How does that work? How often do you do that?
Well, I have to say we ended up taking a hiatus because of the pandemic.
Okay.
It's a hoot of a show. What I do is I do live trainings, really. And so I take people into the studio, have my audience, and I take them through different things and also speak to the camera. Usually I have a nonprofit that I promote during that show, a local nonprofit that I try and support. And it's just fun. And the real fun about it is, as a friend of mine said to me, she said, you need to do a television show. I was like, I can't do a television show. I don't even own a television. I haven't had television since 1992. She's like, oh, that doesn't matter. So, and it was true. So here I am doing these television shows. I've never watched one of the shows. But it's for me, it's about bringing quality content to people and help, right? That people can have an opportunity of hearing stories of other people. And then I would interview people in the audience and say, what do you think about this? Or how does this relate to you? And so we learn from each other, right? We're all here together in this experience we call humanity. And so that's how that's happened. And I don't know when we're going to be picking up again, but it'll probably be here soon now that things are starting to open up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I wish you all the best with that. That's the exciting part of, as everything opens up. It's like, do I do what I've done before? Do I do it in the same way? Do I do
Right.
something new, a new evolution?
Yeah.
Sometimes, even though the pain and the sadness of I'm missing things or I'm frustrated actually allows you to once again evaluate and say, how does that work? And I love that. That's like with the world of live streaming. Anything can be going on TV. You don't have to have one. That's the most amazing thing, right? You can just go with the flow, use technology, basically just show up, right?
Yeah.
Show up authentically as the person you're wanting to, that you want to be representing, that other people will be able to have an opportunity to, to evolve themselves. And that's what it's all about. It's
Yes,
more about that, right? It's about the
it,
person on their journey than
everybody on their journey, because I found also the individuals that came to help in this, the producer, the sound crew, the camera crew, like everybody just wanted to be there. And when we finished the first show, they were like, when are we doing the next? I was like, weren't getting paid. I did all this for free. It's like, are you serious? Oh, we'll come again. So just that the whole energy of everybody involved. And that is the wonderful thing, right? In business, it's not just that one direct point of achieving whatever your profit margin is.
Yeah.
It's how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
Yes. How are we going to get there? How are we going to feel while we're getting there? How do we want to do this? What are we going to create in the process? It's all of that.
Exactly. It is definitely the journey, and it's how you measure success along the way and ultimately, right? And being ahead of the curve and knowing, well, how are you going to, what will success represent, along that journey? What are all the milestones? And that's where you get to use all of your strategy and your planning, so that you can stop and smell the roses, and also celebrate all those extra wins that you didn't realize you're going to have. When you think you've come to the table with one problem and actually it's identified maybe a string of other issues, then while you're dealing with the thing that you came for, you'll actually, then, help fix culture and communication and, your ability to actually achieve the goals for everyone to show up. The synergy in all of that is just wow.
So what I love about what you just said is my definition of success. It's not what you achieve, it's who you are.
Yeah.
So what you just described is exactly that. It's who you show up as is your success. And from that, you achieve things, not the other way around.
Exactly. It's showing up as your whole self. When you lack parts of yourself, you're actually robbing, yourself, but you're also robbing everyone else of the best of you, and those qualities don't have to be perfect. It's not about perfect, because we're always evolving, we're always changing. But when you're uninhibited, when you're unapologetic, when you're actually just going all in, and if everyone does that, that's where you get the gold, right? That's what I find. That is where the gold nuggets lie. It has been an absolute joy having you on my program today. I can't believe we're nearly at the hour. For those of you wanting to reach out to Leezá Steindorf, I know you'll want to. You can see, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel or live feeds, that it's leezasteinDorf.com. You can also go to that website and /core leadership female training, and there you'll actually be able to tap into Leeza's training that she has. She's also got some free stuff that she offers that she was sharing before. It's absolute gold. This woman is like the pinnacle of training on self. If you're a woman who is just wanting to just really just suddenly evaluate the foundations that you lie on, that what are your values, where do you sit, how do you show up, how do you talk to yourself in your self-talk, how do you present, and what are the reasons behind that, I think is the work that Leezá will help you with. Because how we show up, they're all a trigger of the past and the framework and the way we have become to date. But the great joy is that you can become more of yourself until the day you die, and it's never too late to start choosing to have a new narrative and to start just showing up authentically. Thank you so much for being on my show. I can't wait for our book to come out. I can't wait for October, when A Woman's Guide to Business Domination comes out. Make sure you read Leeza's chapter there. And yeah, definitely reach out if you've got any questions. And for all of you as well, obviously, I'm the CEO of the Women's Business Incubator and the Women's Business Tribe. So definitely, if you're looking for a tribe that you're wanting to join, you can join my tribe for a free trial. It's then only $10 a week to come to unlimited amounts of webinars. Also got my incubator programs if you're starting up a business, if you're scaling up a business, or you're wanting to actually dominate in business with a 7-figure mindset. Obviously, always reach out to me at anniegibbins.com or via any of my platforms. So have an awesome week, everyone. I look forward to sharing with you next broadcast. And thank you so much to Leezá. You've been an absolute stellar guest today.
Thank you.